Anderson Silva breaks his leg on yours, and then you do the exact same thing.
I kicked so hard, and it made such a crazy sound. I'm like, I know that hurt him. I'm looking at him in the eyes. I'm like, I know that hurt. And then I see my leg, and the first thought that went through my mind was like, there's no way that's my leg. Like I didn't believe it.
What did it feel like just to land that punch and just see him unconscious?
The way I got that knockout was actually, I lost my cool. I actually was like, I'm not going to stop punching until I hit this dude. It happened and it ended up working out.
How's Pops doing? How's Pops?
Oh, he's doing great, man. That's my boy.
I never forget it. He goes, and that's still my boy. And this is still my boy.
Oh, it was embarrassing. That was my first loss ever. I'm all beat up. Oh, that was awful.
Oh, it's 15-time world champion Demetrious Johnson. You're listening to the MightyCast.
What's going on, guys? This episode of the MightyCast is sponsored by PrizePicks. Now, PrizePicks is a daily fantasy sports game where you can play directly from your phone. All you gotta do is go to your app store, download PrizePicks, and when you do that, make sure you use my promo code MightyCast. They have a cool promotion going on right now. All you gotta do is play $5 in your lineup. No matter what happens in the mixed martial arts fight, the NFL game, or even the NBA game, you win $50. We have UFC 310 right around the corner. Kaya Asakura taking on Alex Pantoja, and then also Ian Gary taking on Shavkat. And you also have Erik Anderson taking on Chris Weidman. So make sure you guys lock in your picks at the right place, which is PrizePicks. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring this episode of the MightyCast. Now, let us get back to our guest, Chris Weidman.
How's it now?
Perfect.
Oh yeah. Yep, hit it just to make sure. Hit it a couple times.
Is it? Oh, yo.
Yep.
Perfect. Oh, that's nice.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, cool. Sorry about that.
It's all good, baby. It's all good. Look
I
at.
can't come on with Mighty Mouse and not have my IT stuff ready to go. I gotta be technologically advanced.
No. I like the awards you got in the back. I like the, is that the MMA awards?
Oh, yeah,
fight of the year? The kicking.
Yeah, so that was I think the 2013 or 2012 breakout fighter of the year, and then 2013 fighter of the year. It's been a while, Demetrious. It's been a while since I've had one of those.
Hey, you know what?
I have a breakout fight of the year too.
Motherfucker, you ain't no fighter.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, how do you have that?
What'd you steal from Demetrious?
I won breakout fight of the year. You don't know?
What?
Are you a fighter?
You've had one fight. He's had one fight.
Chris is like, no, it's Calvin Gaslam.
Gaslam gave it to you?
Okay, boys. Welcome to another episode of the MightyCast, and we have an amazing guest, Chris Weidman, and we just been chopping it up. We've hung out a couple of times. Our wives hung out. We've hung out back in the day when the UFC used to bring us together for the UFC Summit. Well, it's crazy when you're talking about your awards 2013, 2012. That's right. You've been in the game for a very, very long time, and you're still here, baby. You're still here fighting, on pay-per-views. And how does your body feel? Like, you've been in the game for a while, dog.
Yeah, man. I've had 30 surgeries. The body, I had that leg break. That was probably one of the worst injuries in the history of the sport. I came out the skin and everything. So I had 4 surgeries from that. And that's been the hardest thing I've ever had to come back from mentally and physically. And surprisingly, man, I just keep on moving on, and just I find blessings in disguises, and I haven't gave up, and I feel great right now. I feel really good. My body's not killing me. There's always things I got to work around, like my knees. I've had like 12 knee surgeries, and that's stemming since like college and wrestling. I've had a lot of knee surgeries even back then. Actually starting in high school, I had my first knee surgery as a sophomore in high school. And so like there's certain positions that I haven't been able to get into even when I was a college wrestler. So even if you talk to my physical therapist that we had, or athletic trainer that we had at Hofstra when I was wrestling, and you would have told him that I would, go on to the UFC and keep competing, he'd be like, "You're crazy." Like my knee was shot back then. And somehow I was able to just, find positions where I'm comfortable and figure out ways to be good, and fighting is easier because you're standing up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like the flexion in my knees. That's a problem. Like bringing my heels to my ass. That will never happen. I'd pay any amount of money to get that back, but I have like osteophyte. I would do anything to get that back, man, just to be able to sit down in referee's position. So I've had to like figure out ways to, you know, if I'm in a scrambling position and the guy's putting my weight back, if I'm on a shot, on how to not be in that position. So you just kind of like figure it out and evolve within yourself. And I've been able to, you know, keep on moving on and doing all right. I feel great. Like I'm still doing my thing in the room, and I'm still super competitive. I still have that itch to put on a show and compete against the best guys in the world. And it's not going to be that much longer, obviously. I'm 40 years old now, and my body's been through a lot, but I still don't feel like it's time for me to stop. And, you know, guys like you know, you make us look bad. You stopped early, and I feel like you still could be putting it on people.
No, you know
what happened with you? You just were like, I'm good. Like you weren't excited to fight anymore. What happened with you?
You know, Chris, for me, I just got bored of fighting. And what I mean by that is I felt, honestly, this might sound very weird, I felt like my progression as an athlete was stunted. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, I fought Adriano, I lost. Then I fought Rodtang. And when I was learning how to fight Adriano, me being a shorter fighter, my goal is always to get to my opponents. That's always my goal, right? I'm always fighting guys who are 5'5", 5'9", 5'11", 6'2", whatever it may be. So when I fought Adriano, I was trying to get to him. I got knocked out. Then when I fought Rodtang, I was like, okay, this is something new. I'm doing Muay Thai the first round. Second round is going to be mixed martial arts. Yeah. It was a great opportunity. I beat him. Then it was, okay, you're fighting Adriano again. So the same game plan for Adriano, that's, you know, 3-month camp during COVID was the same game plan. Get to him. Rodtang, fight him in the first round. Second round, get to him because he's gonna run. Then the third fight, then my next fight against Adriano was get to him again, and then the fourth fight, I felt it was the fourth fight when I was fighting Adriano again. It was get to him, and so after that, it was like, okay, the next person I'm gonna fight is get to them. I felt like I mastered getting to people, and so I just fell out of love with it because I was never going to be able to fight somebody who was shorter than me and be able to work and be the taller fighter and work in the void and force him to come across the distance and knock him out. And then I was 38, 37, the long training camps, being away from the wife and kids, and the kids were starting to get to a point where their oldest is 11 now. I know you got kids around the same age. Middle is 9, and then my daughter's 6. So I was like, I want to be home more. And my gym's an hour and a half away from me. So I'm losing pretty much 3 hours of travel time. And the training is like, 2 hours. So it's like, I'm just gone all fucking day. Now I get my gym that I train at for jiu-jitsu is 8 minutes from my house. So I'm getting 3 hours of my life back that I've sacrificed for 18 years. I'm like, I was done, but it's refreshing to hear that you still love it. I want to talk more about the 30 surgeries you had. You still love it. You still feel like you want to keep on going, and your body is there with you. So there has to be a point in time where like, I'm fucking done, especially after 30 surgeries, right? Like that's a lot of surgeries. And were you getting surgeries when you were in college, in high school, or did it happen right when you became a professional athlete?
Yeah, no, I started getting my surgeries in high school. I had a lateral meniscus that tore, and it was like a bucket handle tear where it locks into your joint. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever hear about that, like where
never
the meniscus flops into the joint and then your knee's locked out. And at the time, nobody knew what was going on. So like I would just be complaining my knees like dislocated, and then the crazy thing with a bucket handle tear is your full meniscus moving over into the joint. And so when they do MRIs, it's very hard to pick up because everything looks like it's together and everything's normal. Besides, I'm like, I can't move my knee and it's in extreme pain. And so the doctors were like confused, and they just did a surgery anyway. They put me to sleep to see what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as I went to sleep and I relaxed and, the anesthesia hit and my knee just popped back into place, and then my meniscus was where it was supposed to be. And then they did a repair, and then next thing I know that retore and went into the knee again. And like that became like a common thing for me where I'd be wrestling or even like laying down in bed with my wife or whatever. And she was my girlfriend at the time.
Your wife's like, who the fuck was that in the bed of your married to?
It would be the weirdest. It was like the weirdest thing, man. I'd be like just chilling out, like just about to get up, or just weird situations, and my meniscus would lock into my joint. And I got as I it started happening more and more. I learned how to like get it back into the spot, but sometimes it would be stuck so bad and there was no way of getting it back. And then I had to get these surgeries. And so those is actually kind of what added up to the 12 knee surgeries I had. Was it would get so bad where I would have to get a surgery and they would end up clipping a little bit away and then clipping a little bit more. And it would still always be popping into my joint on both knees.
Wow.
And that was all through college. And then it became a real big issue when one of the surgeries that I had where they just went in there and cleaned it up, they ended up, I ended up getting like bad arthritis and it was swelling up all the time. And I had my whole knee was just constantly always filled with blood. And at the time, the athletic trainer thought I just had scar tissue. So they were constantly like taking my ankle and trying to push it to my butt and to get rid of the scar tissue, but they didn't know it was just filled with blood. And that's why I couldn't get it down. So that was the beginning of all my injuries was my knees, just the meniscus flopped into the joint. And then, I'm sure, what else did I have with wrestling? I feel like it might've been just knees. I didn't really have much, other than that, which was enough. I was like, I couldn't be in referee's position. I'd always be that kid that when I had to go down in down position, my knee would flare out to the side. And then the guy who's about to get on top of me, he'd be like complain to the ref as if I'm cheating. I'm like, bro, I can't sit my butt back on my foot. So I'm not trying to cheat. I gotta put it out so I can survive out here. And that eventually, got a little bit worse and worse. And then next thing I know, these bones started forming behind my knee from like all the blood always being there. And those are called osteophytes. And so behind one of my knees, I have like a bone like this, like stuck behind my knee. Wow. And so when I try to go into flexion, it's just bone on bone basically. And it's like piercing into me. So it's super painful. And that was early on in my MMA career. That started getting worse and worse. And I just had learned to, work around it and not get in those positions that hurt me. So and the good thing, like jujitsu, I'm always head over head. I don't sit back. And if I'm in someone's guard, I don't sit back and just like posture up.
Yep.
I'm constantly moving forward, which I have great pressure on top of people, I think, because of that, because otherwise I'm in crazy pain.
What's going on, guys? This episode of the MightyCast is sponsored by Bowlero. Now, Bowlero is a bowling center that has video games, bowling, and they are getting into the business of hosting watch party. And they're starting off with UFC 310, Kai Asakura taking on Alex Pantoja in the co-main event, Shavkat taking on Ian Gary. Somebody has got to go. And why not do it anywhere and watch it anywhere else besides Bowlero? They got video games where you're trying to go there and play some video games and watch the fights, or if you're trying to have a good time with your friends and you want to bowl and watch the fights, check out Bowlero. Now, this is only at selected locations at Bowlero. Make sure you check the link in the description below and it'll let you know if the Bowlero in your area is hosting UFC 310 watch party. And there is no cover charge, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to go there and watch the fights and get some food and some drinks and play video games, it is all a big W. So make sure you guys check the link in the description down below. Secure your table, no cover charge, and enjoy the night at Bowlero while you watch UFC 310, Alex Pantoja taking on Kai Asakura. Shout out to Bowlero for sponsoring this episode of the MightyCast. Now let us get back to our guest, Chris Weidman. Damn. Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing is, I want to talk about your leg break, right? Like Anderson Silva breaks his leg on yours, and then you do the exact same thing. And were you in obviously you're probably in excruciating pain, but were you in excruciating pain right when it happened? And then I'm assuming the adrenaline kicked in and then you weren't in pain? Like, talk me through that horrific injury, because my buddy that I play games with, he almost had the exact same injury. Like, he was delivering a sheet metal or metal sheeting, and he posted against the wall to help the customer out. And then right when he turned away from the metal sheeting, it fell and collapsed on his ankle and just basically severed it. And then he had I think maybe 5 or 6 surgeries to get his shit back together. And then now he's walking, but he has to wear a boot to, offset the height difference. But he was like, dude, it's the worst. Like, everybody I've known who've had that same type of break or injury, they say it's the worst thing because it's like, your shit is just, you got to put it back together and hope it heals correctly. Skin graft after skin graft. Like, what was your whole process to get you back to, I remember I read one of your interviews, you like, I'm going to go out there through the hardest fucking leg kick I can just to make sure it doesn't break again, right? I was like, this motherfucker crazy.
That was the original plan. I was trying to do it in sparring, and I was trying to have that same feeling when I get back in the octagon, but it's my first fight back after the injury. And I'll get back to what it was like to go through the injury. But my first fight back after like 2.5 years dealing with that leg injury was Brad Tavares. And I expected to be able to throw low kicks like crazy. And as soon as I got in there, he started throwing calf kicks. And I was like, I'm throwing back. And as I was going to throw back, it just wouldn't, my body or my brain wouldn't let my body do it. It was like obviously a psychological block I had going on. And then before I know it, he was just kicking my legs off. I'm like, you son of a bitch. No respect, bro. You coming at my damn injury after I just freaking went through the worst damn thing ever? It was messed up. And he just kept running from me. And I couldn't get to him. And then next thing I know, he actually broke my other leg. Not like a compound fracture or anything like that, but he had fractured my other leg. And so both my legs were compromised. That was a nightmare. But going back to like the original, how it happened and the pain and everything, it was really surreal. So it was 17 seconds into the fight. It was the only offensive move to be thrown. And before that fight, actually, since we have time, the full story is I never really threw calf kicks. Calf kicks weren't like a big thing when we were up and coming. It kind of evolved into the sport later on. And Anthony Smith came out and train with me, and he was on the same pay-per-view card. So we were like, all right, let's train together. And we were sparring. I'm like, let me try out these calf kicks. Everyone was doing them. I calf kick him one time with that right leg, and he drops in pain. And like he couldn't spar anymore. I had to take like 5 minutes off or whatever, and then I wasn't gonna leg kick him again. I'm like, damn, these things freaking work. Holy smokes! And he had told me that he had been calf kicked before in a fight, and like it just takes forever to heal. Like his leg is super sensitive to it, which I didn't know. So I think I had that confidence, like with the calf kick. So going into the Uriah Hall fight. We're moving around. I went to kick him as hard as I possibly could, somewhere around that calf. I was like somewhere below the knee, and I just wound up into it. And when I did, it just hit, the bottom part of his knee. And all I remember thinking was like, oh my God, there's no way he's taking any more of those kicks. Like I kicked so hard and it made such a crazy sound. I'm like, I know that hurt him. I'm looking at him in the eyes. I'm like, I know that hurt. And as my foot goes back, all of a sudden I'm falling and I'm looking, and then I see my leg, and the first thought that went through my mind was like, there's no way that's my leg. Like immediately I thought of Anderson Silva. I was like, the only time I've seen this is Anderson Silva's like, how the hell is this my leg? Like the whole craziness and the irony of the whole thing, that was the first thing that struck in my head. What the fuck? Like I didn't believe it. Where the hell am I? And then I remember Anderson screaming at the top of his lungs. So as soon as Anderson Silva broke his leg on me, I had no idea he broke his leg. I thought if you watch that full fight, like I dropped him in the first round, ground and pounded him. So I beat him on the feet, ground and pounded him on the ground. He fought with his hands up, and very like fundamentally sound, because in the first fight, I dropped him with the left hook with his hands down. So he had such backlash from fighting that way, which was way harder for me to fight, by the way, with his hands down and him playing games with me. But I checked one of his leg kicks in that first round, and I go, oh crap, I checked his leg kick. And then then he wound up and tried to kick me again, and I saw it coming. I'm like, I'm checking it again. And when he went down, you know what it's like when you check someone's leg kick. Like sometimes it's so damn painful. Mentally, I thought he was out, and I didn't think he broke his leg. So I'm circling. I'm happy. I thought I won, and I did win. But I turn around and I hear him screaming, and then I come over to him and I see him holding his leg in place. I'm like, oh my God! And then immediately it's like you feel awful. And I just will never forget the screaming that he was letting out. And I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be painful. And then immediately, as soon as I thought that, it was the worst pain I ever had in my life.
Damn.
I was just, please give me painkillers, please put me to sleep, like, whatever. And and mine, which is different than I guess anybody in the UFC, mine was a compound fracture. So the bones actually came outside the skin, which ends up becoming a big problem with recovery, because then you end up puncturing all the nerves and muscle tissue, all the blood vessels and veins and all that stuff ends up getting really screwed up, which ends up becoming an issue. And then also, as soon as I'm down there, the first people in the octagon, the doctors, they couldn't feel my pulse in my foot. And I'm coherent enough, and I'm, I guess I know a little bit enough to know that means like this is possible amputation. And so now I'm freaking out like I'm going to lose my leg or I could possibly die. I'm thinking the worst case scenarios, and the pain is just awful. And then they're trying to put my bones back in my leg, which the UFC, like as crazy as the UFC is, they never showed that footage of the bones actually coming outside the skin and all that stuff. And which I actually have a video of it. Like Monster Energy got it somehow through the UFC, but it's pretty grotesque. So then they're trying to put my bones back in, and that's all the nightmare. They put me on the stretcher, and I just remember I'm just yelling. I want to get my wife because I know she is losing her mind somewhere. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere until you get my wife here. And then thank God she got there. And then we were in the ambulance, and it was all night long until they could put me to sleep because I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was during COVID. So there was no surgeons that are going to do anything at night. You have to wait till the next morning to do a surgery. So they're going as much morphine as possible on me, and it just nothing was enough to make me feel better. And I remember Dana White comes in, and he's like talking to me, and I remember I was such a little bitch. I'm like crying, hysterical. I'm like, Dana, I never ask you for anything, but please make sure I have a good doctor and that they're going to do the right thing because I'm in just an emergency room who's going to be doing this super serious surgery.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got you. And then I had to wait till the next morning to finally get the surgery, and it was just the whole thing was complete nightmare. And then stemming from that, so originally they put in just a rod and screws in the middle of my tibia bones. That's a big bone that goes down the lower leg. And then after recovery, I start walking and everything. I realized that my fibula that was broken in half, sometimes it'll heal on its own, but it wasn't healing. It was such a monster hit that the bones weren't getting the blood supply it needs to heal back the way it's supposed to. So every time I started learning how to walk again, and basically probably 12 weeks or something after the injury, the fibula bone was constantly doing this, and it was like a nauseating feeling. So then they had to go back in and do a surgery to put plates on that. And then, this is all within a 2.5 year period. So then the next thing you know, I was having terrible pains where the screws were in my tibia. So then they had to take those screws out. Then the next thing, the plates that were on the fibula were causing issues. So they had to take those out. And when they took those out, I ended up getting an infection down to my bone on 2 spots.
God.
And so I got 2 monster holes down to my fibula. And the surgeon who did all these surgeries, he's an amazing traumatic surgeon who works with the military, special forces and stuff. And so he's used to seeing everything. He was never like when he see my leg and nothing shocked him, nothing worried him. He was never concerned. When he saw those infections, I'll never forget the face he was making and how worried he was, because that's a big issue. He got super scared, which got me really scared. And then that was dealing with that for a while, in and out of the hospital, with the PICC line and, trying to get rid of that infection. And that ended up going away. And man, it just took a really long time to be able to get up on my toes and build the strength back. And, I've had knee issues on that side anyway. And then when they take a titanium rod and they push it through your top of your knee, down through that joint and into the tibia, it caused a lot of more knee issues. So being able to get through all that, being able to bounce and having strength in the calf, all that stuff, nerve issues. I still don't feel the top of my foot really. It's all pins and needles and the side of my calf. But that's fine. Now I'm moving around fine, but it was a very long road.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, fuck that noise. Hearing all that, everything you went through, obviously, God works in mysterious ways. You're back here at 40 years old and you're still excited to fight. But just hearing that story, 2 things pop in my mind. One is that's enough. If I would have gone through that whole traumatic, injury, the surgeries after surgeries, because I broke my leg one time, but I broke the fibula, not the tibia. I broke against Miguel Torres. I kicked him. I rolled over too much. He checked it, broke. And I was like, well, there goes my right leg. Fought through it, but mine was able to heal on its own because it broke. And when it broke, it went right back into place. So it's just a separation and it calcified and healed perfectly. But if I would have gone to that, I'm like, I am done. I'm done. And it also reminds me of I'm glad I got out when I did, because all you are is one fight away from break again, right? That's layman terms. And 2, now I see why we need a pension, not a pension, but medical for life, right? Because you've been in the game for how long? You been the UFC?
I've been a pro fighter since 2009, and I've been in the UFC since 2011.
2011, and we're in 2024, so that's what 13 years. My math is correct, right? 13 years.
Yeah.
I think if you at least make 10 years in an organization, let's just do 5 or 6 years. If you make it 5 or 6 years in an organization and you're winning, you've been a world champion, like they should be like, okay, we got you for the rest of your life for medical. Because I mean, after you're done fighting, I'm assuming there's going to be more injuries going to come up. It's kind of like in the NFL. You do 5 or 6 years, you play at the highest level, you're going to have, the concussions and all that stuff coming down. Hopefully they don't come for you, but down the line, they're going to come for you. So, fuck, man. I mean, God bless you. God bless, the inner soul, which you got going, brother, because you still in it and you're still excited to fight again. And Jesus.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think when I look back, it's probably like retrospectively, it probably prolonged my career because I didn't think I was going to fight till like I'm 40 years old. But when you're off, this is a 2.5 year layoff, but with all my injuries I've had, I've had 30 surgeries. So there's been a lot of layoffs and time where I haven't been able to fight. And I think because of that, I feel like I haven't shown as much as I, can do in the octagon yet. So it like keeps me still hungry to be able to put on a show and just kind of prove to myself what I'm able to do in the gym and be able to do it under the lights. And still at 40 years old, I'm with these young guys every day and who are these up and coming fighters and beasts. And I'm still doing my thing against everybody. And I feel like if I start getting rolled up on the mats and beat up a little bit in the room, I'd be like, all right, I'm definitely done. You throw the injuries on there. But when I'm still, fighting against world-class guys in the gym and I'm still able to, put it on them, it's just like, man, all right, I still have it. I don't want to look back and be like, oh man, I had a little bit more to give.
Yep.
And like I said earlier, it's not like I have, 5 years left or, anything close to that probably. But I still feel like I have more to give and it's not going to be that much longer. I just want to give the best of myself until I feel like it's over.
Hey, God bless you. Okay, now let's go to the beginning, right? I know you're a standout wrestler in high school, middle school as well. What made you transition into mixed martial arts, right? Because I feel, you are part of the golden era of mixed martial arts. And me and my producer, Michael, we always talk about this, where you came in the ranks when it was, you, Anderson Silva, you had GSP, you had just banger after banger after banger. Right? And what was your transitioning into going from high school wrestling to mixed martial arts?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I ever engaged with like an MMA guy, there was a guy named Pete Sell, his nickname. He was in the UFC. He had choked out Phil Baroni. He was like a superstar in my mind. He was coming down to Hofstra to learn how to wrestle. So I remember going with him a couple of times, just showing him things, and we like drill and maybe a little live. And he, one of the other guys in the wrestling room, this guy, John Moss, who was a 3-time All-American stud wrestler, he was like, Chris, go with Drago and do jiu-jitsu. Let's see how you do. And I've only watched UFC on TV, and I didn't know much at all with like jiu-jitsu submissions and stuff. And I thought it was kind of crazy. And I started on bottom, and I remember Moss just screaming at me, just get up like it's wrestling. Stop trying to do like jiu-jitsu. Just get up. Get up to your feet and get up. And I remember I get up to my feet, and next thing I know, he's like on my leg, and my leg is starting to bend in half. He's doing a knee bar on me. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And I tap, and I'm like, oh, this shit's crazy. I was like, that's scary. Like, you can tear my ACL. No. And so still no real interest. And then, so I, for the next year after that, I was training for the 2008 Olympics and trying to get to the trials and see how I would do in that. And I was coaching at Hofstra as a volunteer. I'm making like $12,000 as a volunteer assistant at the time. And, I think I may have just got married. Yeah, I think I just may have got married. And, we're looking to have kids. We're living in my parents' basement. And, I was getting my master's in phys ed, which I thought would be a great job. But I had like this. So basically, I for the 2008 trials, right before the trials, I tore the cartilage in between my ribs. And I don't know if you ever done that, but it
sucks.
You're done. Like, there's nothing you could do. So I was out and I couldn't compete. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do? From 2008 to 2012 and do all the world teams. And and then do the 2012 Olympics. And at that time, there was like no money for wrestlers at all. Like you're not getting sponsorships. Like some of these guys now, they're living a good life and training to wrestle, which is pretty cool. But back then, there really was no opportunities like that, unless you're like, Jordan Burroughs, or like top 1, 2 guy, on the ladder. And it still wasn't that much money. So at that time, I was like, you know what? I grew up fighting. I grew up fighting a lot. I had a tough older brother who would always beat me up. He'd make me fight his friends the whole time. And even in wrestling, like when I'd lose to a guy, I'm like, I would beat his ass in fighting. Like I could beat that. So that was kind of like always kind of inside me. But so I ended up telling my wife, I'm like, I'm going to just give this a shot. And I went down to Matt Serra's academy. I bought the gi. I paid my monthly fee, and I did 3 months. And I ended up going to this jiu-jitsu tournament. It was like the Northeast Championships Grappler Quest. And I did my weight class, and I did the absolute division. And if you won the absolute division, you got $2,000 cash. You got $1,000 like clothing sponsorship, and you got a championship belt. And so I ended up submitting everybody. It's all black belts and stuff. And I'm like, this was easy. Like I crushed it. I made $2,000. Like if I did this every month, I'm making more money than I do, coaching and killing myself doing private lessons and stuff. I'm like, maybe I should, and then everyone around me, they're like, oh, you're super gifted at this. Like you got to pursue it. And then I went down to Longo. I started learning how to strike. I got my wife on board. We were able to get enough money coaching and everything to where I'd be able to take care of my family a little bit. And hopefully this fight thing, turns out to be something. And then before you know it, like 6 months into learning stand-up, I had my first professional fight. And it kind of like, just went all in, and I was obsessed. And the wrestling world, like I never really accomplished my goals. I was a 2-time junior college All-American. I was a 2-time Division I All-American. But the goal was always to be a national champion. I always kind of like choked, and I felt like I wasn't like the hardest. The guys who were beating me, I feel like they just probably worked harder than me. And when I got into jiu-jitsu and I started training MMA, I wanted to be known as like that hardworking, like just tough blue collar kid, not like the talented kid in the back room that could beat anybody, but also could lose anybody. So I just changed my mindset. I just started, really winning and feeling really confident, and not like getting in my own mind because I'm not training as hard as the next guy.
Damn. And I felt like you went to, so you started off with jiu-jitsu is what I hear. You went from wrestling to jiu-jitsu, and then you were excelling in that. And then I don't think a lot of people know, you went to ADCC, and you had some banger fucking matches out there as well. How did you get that invitation? Because I know only the select few get to go to ADCC back in the day. Now it's so massive that like you still have to get accepted by winning. I think it's regional. But back then, you got invited to ADCC. Tell me about that.
No, so there was actually, so I started my fight career in 2009, and I won 2 fights, and then I broke my hand. I got my hip bone in this hand, so I had to get surgery, and I couldn't throw a punch. And so Longo was actually like, well, you're killing everybody with jiu-jitsu. Why don't you, try this Abu Dhabi, try to get into the Abu Dhabis and stuff like that. So I started focusing heavily on that, and while I was injured, and I did the trials. They had East Coast trials, so like the best guys of the East Coast. And I ended up winning and submitting the guy. I submitted everybody besides the guy in the semifinals. And so I ended up going to Spain for the Abu Dhabis, and it was an awesome experience, man. It was really good. In my weight class, I completely crushed the first 2 guys, and then I had Andre Galvao in the semifinals. And I was so far removed from being obsessed with like who people are at that point. I wasn't like, I didn't want to start watching people too much to give them too much respect. I knew Andre Galvao. I know he's really good. He was like a 7-time world champion already at that point. And, my coaches, everybody was telling me, but I was like, I don't care. I'm going to crush him. And in the first like 20 seconds, he sits guard. I jump in full confident, and he ends up throwing me in an omoplata, reverses to like an arm bar. I like jump over. He puts me on the armbar like on the other side. I pull out, and I'm like, holy shit, this dude's good. This guy's a different level, And I had to make a decision like, all right, do I play passive and just like try to out-wrestle him, or do I just keep going after him? And I just kept going after him. And it was becoming like it was a really good match. We went to double overtime. And I'll be honest, there's no like salt in that loss because I worked my ass off during that match. I gave everything I had. But if I would have known the rules at all, I actually think I 100% won that match, because in double overtime, if he sits down he's not allowed to sit down. Basically, if he sits down, I could just tell him to stand up, and he has to stand up. You know, the ref is going to make him stand up. And I didn't know that because it basically comes down to a takedown in that double overtime period. And as soon as he went down to his knees, I just jumped on him in a front headlock. I was going for like Darces and stuff. And then like he sat to his guard, and then I like came around. But because it wasn't like a feet to floor thing, and I didn't ask him to stand up, it doesn't count as a takedown, even though I ended up on top. So I screwed myself. He ended up winning on like a sweep. And it was just it was a really good match that gave me a lot of confidence for like the rest of my career, because, you know, having a real close match like that, and I had him in a lot of trouble. I had him in like maybe like 6 different type of submissions during that match, and I had him in some trouble. And when you go against a guy like that, and then you move on to MMA, it's like, all right, nobody's gonna have jiu-jitsu like this dude, you know. And it definitely gave me like a big confidence boost.
Yeah, that if you guys have not watched that match, Chris Weidman versus Andre Galvao in ADCC, it is a banger. I remember watching it. I was like, holy I was like, because I kind of knew who Andre was, right? And then I was like, okay, this is Chris Weidman. I've seen him before. Like, I watched it after, you know, it happened when you got in the UFC. And I watch it. I'm like, holy shit. I was like, Chris is hanging with them, getting an armbar, this. And then that's the thing, like when you get to that higher level of jiu-jitsu, it's, you know, it's the strategy. You know, a lot of people tell me like there's 3 components when you're getting ready for like a black belt level competition. It's the preparation, like your physical preparation, then your conditioning, which is also, they consider it 3 different categories: the preparation, the conditioning, and then the strategy. And that's one thing I'm lacking, where it's like, okay, if I pull guard, you have to pass, and I can submit you, or I can sweep you, or I get back to my feet, where that's something I'm lacking. But he was able to beat you with that. Like, oh, he pulls guard, double overtime. Shit, you told him to stand up, you do the takedown, boom, 2 for you, you go on to the finals, right? So
The cool thing with that is because it was such an exciting match, they ended up asking me to do the absolute division. So I don't know how they do it now, but back then it was whoever they thought were like the best guys in all the weight classes, they would ask to go in the absolute division. And so that was cool. I was able to do that too. I ended up getting flying armbarred by Vinny Magales. Did my camera just shut off?
It looks like it did, my friend.
Hang on. Bro, that's weird. I had to just restart my computer.
That's okay. Maybe your toes were playing with the cords. You actually,
I don't know.
Accidentally pulled it off.
Maybe that's what it is. That is possible.
Okay, we were talking about ADCC, how you did all that stuff. Let's get back to, I mean, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, that fight with you and Andre Galvao, then you went into the absolute, got flying armbar by Vinny Magales, you said it was?
Vinny Magales. I think it's his. Yeah. He's I've never felt that before. That was my first experience being flying armbarred. So to make it a little bit longer story, so right before that, I went against some heavyweight Olympian from Brazil, this monster. He was like 270 pounds, just jacked. And it was me hand fighting him and just trying to exhaust him by pulling his head nonstop. And ended up getting a takedown on him towards the end. And then, so I won that. I was exhausted. And you know how it is with jiu-jitsu? Like, I literally, the next match was 10 minutes later. I got off the mat and they were calling me on deck. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? My forearms were just like so dead from pulling. I was like, oh my gosh. And I just jumped that match, and I didn't go into the match with the same intensity at all. I was kind of just like, I got on his head. I was just kind of relaxing. And then he was like pulling me into him. I'm like, why is he doing that? And then it was nice. He got me. It was very pretty.
Well, I love that. I love that you got to experience, because that's one thing I wanted to try to do earlier in my career, because my coach Matt Hume, he went to ADCC and he did very well, but he tore his ACL and he was never the same athlete after he tore his ACL. So he was like, dude, you're not going to ADCC. Like,
he tore his ACL in ADCC?
Yeah, he tore his ACL in ADCC. He still won the match, but he couldn't continue for the next match because he was like, I tore my ACL.
Like a knee bar, or?
I think his knee just got caught in the mat some interesting way, because he was going to try to pass the guy's guard from like the story he was telling me, and then it tore, and then he ended up winning the match, but then he was like, I can't go on any further. You know, Matt is 20 years older than me, so you think about it, like I'm 38, so 20 years ago, Not 20 years ago, but he did when he was younger, and he wasn't able to continue his fighting career because his ACL was never the same afterwards. And then he went to do Pride. So that's why I've never done ADCC, because he's like, and that's why even today, like, I don't like do knee, I don't mind knee bars because you could tap for a knee bar, but like heel hooks, like, dude, all it takes is the wrong turn and your ACL is gone. I was like, great, I just tore my ACL for fucking what? Like,
100%.
It's like, it's just not worth it, especially being 38. Everybody's like, dude, you should do Craig Jones Invitation. I was like, fuck that. I was like, put me in the old man division. I don't want no ACL. I don't want no heel hooks. And it's just it's a very dangerous injury that can happen to somebody. And it's just not like, it's,
well, you could do those super fights where leg locks aren't in it. A lot of guys do that, where you could actually, you change the rule set. A lot of the fighters do that when they do a super fight in jiu-jitsu. They get paid. And you just have a matchup. You take leg locks out because it's just not worth it. And these guys, man, these days, I don't know if you've gone against like these ninjas of today that are just so well versed in like leg lock situations. It's like, it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, it is.
It's like they spend hours and hours. I mean, like years of just nonstop drilling, probably full of time on dealing with the lower part of the body. And especially when we were up and coming, it was like if guys were going for heel hooks, they were kind of like it was like frowned down upon. You could hurt somebody. Why would you do that? And so it didn't happen much in training.
Yeah, even like I went with Mikey Musumeci, and he like I was in Vegas because my dad lives there, and I went to go train with him before I got ready for Worlds, and he tapped me so many times just with heel hooks, and I'm like, dude, it's not even fair. And he was like, you could turn your knee off, you could do this and this. I was like, Mikey, I've had so many knee injuries, from the popliteus, the LCL, the MCL. It's like my knees are so damn tight. And when I talked to my physical therapist, she was like, your knees are tight because you're an explosive athlete. You played football, you played basketball, you ran track. Like your body wasn't designed to turn and move those ways, where, Mikey's grappled his whole entire life. So he understands the flexibility, where he can do whatnot. So dude, like even like watching the Rotolo brothers and Levi, and I'm like, Jesus, dude, like, I'm like, tap, 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 tap. That's a heel hook, tap, tap. But their knees are just flexible. So,
and they've been in those breaking points so many times, either putting it on people or being in it. So they really understand where that breaking point is. And so a lot of those guys, they're in these heel hooks and they're like just chilling. They're just like, just another day. They know when it's a real problem, and they're so comfortable there. It's really amazing. That's a big evolution in the sport, is the heel hook game. We haven't seen it too much in MMA, but in jiu-jitsu, it's really a game changer. There's a guy like Gordon Ryan I've trained with a million times. He's the best. So like going with him it's ridiculous. If he decides to start going heel hooks on me, I'm like, all right, this is fun for you. Is this fun for you? Let's not do this. Come on.
We should make a rule make a rules like, if you're gonna go heel hooks, I get to punch you in the face. If you want to do that route, let's run it. And
I don't want to punch you in the face. So don't heel hook me.
Exactly.
So stop it.
I always tell people, like, when I start doing like MMA, like just MMA, and when I'm playing, and when people go after my ankles or heel hooks, it literally just pisses me off, because you're trying to make it so I don't walk the next day. And then it's just like, I go from 0 to a fucking 100. Even when I do grappling, if somebody goes for a leg lock, like ankle lock, I'm like, all right, I'm mad. Especially if it's a stranger. I'm like, you motherfucker, no respect whatsoever.
I know. How good is that dude Musumeci? Is he just insane?
He is the GOAT. He is the GOAT, because
how does he do against, like, I mean, obviously Gordon Ryan's so much bigger. But like, how does he do against like Gary Tonin and Rotolo brothers? And like, he hasn't really been in that mix with those guys, right?
He's smaller. Like he fights at 135. He grapples at 135. He was going to take on Cade Rotolo at one championship, and he was going to have to make 170, and he was eating up to like 150. And I honestly, like, after feeling him, granted, those guys are on a different level, right? And obviously Mikey's natural, like he doesn't do steroids. And so the Gordon, I think
it's tough. The steroid thing brings it to a whole different level. Like, I know you've been around long enough. When I'm going with somebody who's on steroids, I'm like, if they're good. I'm not talking about the 40-year-old dude who's like a novice and like likes fighting. Like, you could get through that strength. But when you're going against a guy who is super good and they do steroids, it's like, this is not fair. Like, this is really not fair. It's not fair. Like, they grab your wrist and you can't move your wrist. Like, I've competed against everybody in the damn world. never had a problem getting my wrist back, and all of a sudden my wrist is stuck in cement. It's crazy.
And that's why I always laugh, because it's, I felt some really strong guys, like going with Bibiano Fernandez. I'm like, holy shit, this is a man from the jungle. Going with Lucas Pinheiro, going with Mikey Musumeci. Then I've gone with guys where I'm like, okay, like, what's going on here? And you're not getting tired either. And I'm like, something's interesting, right? I think I've gone with more natural people than I've gone with more enhanced individuals. But I think Mikey is probably the GOAT pound for pound, because I've trained with him. I've also trained with the Rotolo brothers, and they are fucking good as well. Like how they can move their body and their squeezes from their Darce choke, and how they use their lats to squeeze. It's like...
But that's probably easier for you to deal with than like a guy who's systematic on the legs, because you... Right? Is it a little easier for you? Not to put...
Well, they're so much bigger than me. They're fucking they're massive. Like, I'm trying to pass their guard, and he goes, got you. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I have perfect posture. But there's just those guys. Like, I'm super excited to see what Mikey can do, at UFC Fight Pass. Like, I'll still, like, it was funny the other day. My son was pissed off because he was in Denver, Colorado when I announced my retirement. And that's where Mikey and Rotolo were supposed to fight. And he goes, fucking A, man. I was so excited to see Mikey versus Rotolo. So pissed off it got canceled. But that's the first time that my kids were, like, super excited about, like, a match. Right? Like he was like,
that's cool.
He loves Mikey. Cool. He loves K. Rotolo. He goes, and he grapples. He does jiu-jitsu. He does gi and no-gi. So he was like, I'm super pumped. I cannot wait to watch it. So he follows his sport. But Mikey, like, he is cream of the crop. Like, there's nobody out there better than him, man. Nobody out there.
Yeah. When I see, I'm watching his videos, and even when he's fought in the one championship, he's just so systematic, man. He's just steps ahead. And I know he's a drill. He drills like all day long. Like, you get those type of guys, they're so fucking good. Oh, there's a guy from our gym, and even Gordon Ryan will say it's the toughest guy he's ever gone against in the room. This guy's name is Jason Rao. Under the lights, he's not. I guess he's competitive. I guess his shtick is that, like, competitively, like, he kind of like doesn't unload like the way he should, and he holds himself back. I don't know what that is, but bro, he is so good that, like, I will try to leg lock him because I know he's so good at them. And I'm gonna get him. Like, I'm pretty good at heel hooks, but I go for heel hooks on him, and it's like, it's guaranteed I'm getting heel hooked. And even if I have him in the best position ever, he's just like, just taking my leg. I'm so much bigger and stronger, it doesn't even matter. And then next thing I know, it's like, all right, I just don't want to get submitted in this 5-minute go. And still he'll submit my ass. And I'm like, what the fuck? And it's just, he's that guy who's been drilling. He's that kid who just, after class, he's just drilling nonstop all day long, teaching private lessons. And those guys are a freaking problem to deal with. Like Gordon Ryan and those guys, Danaher guys, they literally train seven days a week. And Danaher is a mad genius, man. He is. So he has these guys, he's built these systems where, like, okay, if I do this, if you do this, this guy's going to have these 3 options. This is how we beat those 3 options. So he already knows what every possible option that you have that you're going to end up using to defend. And he's already on to the next step after that. It's really impressive how they've broken down jiu-jitsu and how that's evolved. There's a sweet science, for sure.
Yeah, that's why I find jiu-jitsu and gi and even no-gi so intriguing. That's where, like, my new love is now, because mixed martial arts, I felt like I learned every pattern. If I go this way, he's gonna go this way. If I go this way, he's gonna hit me this way. With me going to jiu-jitsu and the gi, it's like, okay, I have this, kimono on. I have my lapel. I have spider. I have lasso guard, Deli Hiva, re-Deli. I have so many different, I have crab ride, I have, the matrix. There's so much, especially, like, I like no-gi. I feel like no-gi's more catered to athleticism, explosiveness, where when I put the gi on, it basically nullifies my speed. You grab your grips on me, I'm like, fuck, now I have to deal with your grips. Now I have to break this. And I never forget when I went with Mikey in the gi, oh God, it was like, I was like, I can't, I said, I can't. He goes, I can't do anything. He goes, yeah, because I've locked you fucking down. You got to break my, So that's what I love about it. And that's what made me fall back in love with training again.
And and your body stay pretty healthy, right? Like, you're not too beat up other than, like, your knees are a little stiff, but, like, you're pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Like, body feels great. I have a labrum tear in my right hip, which I've had that since 2017. But other than that, like, body, shoulders, neck, Yeah, I feel great.
Does a labrum tear like affect you at all? Like, does it hurt you doing jiu-jitsu in situations or not bad?
No, not bad. Only time it hurts me is when I have fluid build up in the labrum area when I have bursitis. So I have to keep, if I don't continue to run and do sprints and work those small microfiber muscles, then it will start to hurt. So like, you know, your boy right here with these short ass legs, I'm not throwing up triangles from the back. It's
Don't tell your opponents that. They might be worried. These guys are going to be like, oh shit, all right, we don't have to worry about triangles. We're
exactly, right? But it's funny because I just triangled somebody from my back yesterday when I was doing live rolls. And they were like, why'd you throw a triangle? I was like, I figured I'd try it. So, but other than that, body feels great. You know, I can't complain for how long I've been in the game from 2006 to 2023, 2022. You know, I can't complain. Being able to sit down and talk to you, even though we've hung out before in the past, but it's been a very, very, very long time to sit here and talk to you and hear your story about the 30 surgeries, the leg break, you know, your time at ADCC. You know, I can't wait to talk about, you know, your career, becoming the champion, all that stuff. That fills my bucket, right? Like I truly enjoy talking to athletes who've competed in the same sport I have done in the same time frame, right? I can't wait to ask, what you gonna do with your check when it comes? When you get your lawsuit check, what you gonna do with your check?
Oh, bro, I can't wait for that. Is that, I don't even believe it. I don't really believe it. Do you?
Yeah.
Did you get DC messed with me so bad. So I was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago, right, in New York. Yeah. And I'm doing interviews with everybody. And, I get him with DC and me and him, we're buddies. So we ended up talking longer. And he's like, bro, did you get the call? I go, no. You got a call? I'm like, fuck, what number was it? He was like, 188 number. Mm-hmm. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? So I'm going through all my missed calls. He's like, yeah, they told me I'm getting $1 million a month. So I'm like, are you serious? Like, are you freaking kidding me? So I'm bugging out. I'm like, I got to answer all these calls. I never answer like these spam calls. Mm-hmm. I get all these random numbers. He ends up texting me later, bro, I'm just messing with you. I didn't get a call. Because he was making it like he got a call from the attorneys. And I'm like thinking I've been missing these calls. I'm not going to get my check. Yeah. But he was just BSing me. So I don't think anybody got the call yet. Someone told me that like in June or July, maybe. Yep. That's when they're supposed to be handing out checks. Is that what you heard? Yeah, June, July. 1 second. Michael, make sure you bleep out. I'll remind you. Well, he said DC was fucking with him. But anyways, whoops. Yeah, no, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. So yeah, typically you get a call and then you're supposed to fill out your paperwork online. Have you filled that out yet or no? No, so okay. You got paperwork? Yeah, okay. I'll send it to you. Rich Franklin said you missed the deadline by November 22nd, but I'm gonna send it to you, and I don't know if Rich Franklin's really keeping close to what's going on, but you fill it out. I might have missed the deadline. You know what, man? I'll figure it out now. I'll text homeboy and we'll get my manager. Nobody told me anything. Oh, see, what the hell? I'm firing everybody. And see, this is the thing that was a problem with this UFC lawsuit is that, there was nobody really going out telling everybody like how to claim their money. Like a couple people on Twitter were doing it, but like you have to go claim it. And I think you can, but a lot of athletes are scared to claim it because they're still getting a check from the UFC. But like if you fought from 2011 to 2017, which were your heydays, right? That's where you beat Anderson Silva. Oh yeah. That's where you had your fight with Luke Rockhold. I mean, you were that's where you were fucking killing it. Yeah, that was all my big fights. Yeah, they basically they gave you like $13,000 for each fight you had in that time frame, and then they also gave you a percentage of what you made that whole entire time. So I don't know if you got pay-per-view points when you're a champion, but they all that essentially. So you get like 22% of whatever you made. Is that? Did you hear that number? I don't know what that number is. No. I can't. I think it's in. Bro, I'm actually red in the face right now because you talked about a deadline. Yeah. Like I didn't fill out paperwork and I could possibly not get this money. Is that what you're telling me? We gonna make sure you get your fucking money. I'll text the attorney when we get off the phone to make sure. Oh, you have the attorney's information. Yeah, I called them. I called them. I said, hey, what I'm looking at? What type of one are we looking at? And Michael bleeped this out, but there's like Demetrious, you're gonna get like a check for like $. And I was like, hey, you know what? That's free money. I'm happy about that because, I put my time in, and when that check hits in July, it's like, okay, there's, that much money. I guess I'll, pay my taxes, invest that money, and just keep it going. So, and I'm sure, like I said, I didn't get pay-per-view points. You might have got pay-per-view points. I'm sure you're probably making what, 500,000 flat, 350 flat, whatever it was right now. No, not. Oh, then no, the pay-per-view points is what did it for me.
Exactly.
I should be pretty damn good.
Yeah, exactly. Like
if I could get at this deadline, you're scaring the shit out of me. I didn't think there was any ostracizing anybody based on like getting paperwork.
No, I mean that's what one person says, but then again,
why are you coming on? Are you here to tell me?
Because I was going to say, while we're on the topic, some other money that you deserve, Chris.
Oh shit!
And I got to say, we speak like the truth on this podcast. We don't. UFC doesn't own us, whatever.
Yeah, because
you
Demetrious
needed to
is
get
not in the UFC.
I say what the fuck I want
because they traded his ass for Ben Askren. But you should have been paid your show money for what happened with Erik Anders. It's to me, it makes zero sense. I've talked to other fighters about it. So actually, Val Duar, he is a writer for Sporting News. He did the math. It would cost the UFC about like an extra $2 million a year if they just paid out guys in your situation where you didn't have a choice, right? It wasn't a situation where your opponent missed weight and they ask you, hey, are you willing to fight him overweight and take 30% of your purse? You had no choice. It was, oh shit, I can't fight at all. So I just wanted to say on behalf of MightyCast, I think the fighters need to get paid in the future in those situations. I got to say it while we have you on here. So I think you deserve whatever your show money was.
Yeah. So I try to look at this from all perspectives, and I was with you. That was like, all right, listen, I showed up, I deserve to get it. But then, I mean, there's a lot of ways to go with this, but if they paid me my full purse then, they wouldn't be letting me fight anytime soon. Like I wouldn't be able to fight for months and months and months. I'm healthy, so I want to fight. But it would have to be something that is in contract, because I guess contractually we're not supposed to get any money if we don't fight. So that's the problem. Like contractually, they don't owe us anything.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we're at. And I agree. Like in the future, there should be something in the contract where like, all right, you show up in the fight, and now like, do people start doing shady things? Like, all right, I'm going to back out of this fight. I'll give you half of my money. Like, we both back out or whatever. But in my situation, there was nothing like that. I don't know. So like when I spoke to them, it was, I guess I was told that it happens almost on 40% of the cards. I don't think like a situation like me, I was literally about to be walking into the locker room at MSG, and I got the phone call. It's off, and I'm like, so you know what it's like the day of the fight? Like the day of the fight's the worst part. Like just mentally trying to deal with the pressure and like overthinking everything and just the stress of everything on your family. Everybody's losing their mind, and then not to mention the weight cut, which sucks. So you do everything right, and then you're like, all right, now I don't get paid, and all these people spend all this money. It's just it's a tough situation that I think hopefully they kind of figure it out for people and they put it into a contract. Our sport's so young, and the UFC is just a monster, and there's no competition at all. Right. Like where's PFL? PFL, these champions, like, would I want to be anywhere else? Like I gotta be happy where I'm at. Like I'm getting paid good money. And so it's like, I gotta be happy right now. Like one championship's not looking too great, I don't think, based on what I'm hearing. PFL, like all these champions can't get fights, all these old Bellator champions. So it's one of those things. Yeah. Like if you're looking and comparing to other sports, like if this happened in the NFL or MLB, I'm sure there's something contractually immediate. There's no negotiations. It's just set. This is what you get in a situation like that.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail. Like, let's go back, because when I fought Ray Borg in Canada, went through the whole fight week, and the UFC knew he wasn't going to make weight because he was struggling, like he was hurting. And they didn't tell me all the way till after the press conference. And next, I have my routine when I'm getting ready to cut my weight. I go upstairs, I have all my sauna suit on, I start hitting pads. My wife's there, the whole family's there watching me, do what I do. I'm cooking in the gym, and next we get a call from Hunter. Was it Hunter? I don't know who it was. And they say, hey, stop cutting weight. Ray Borg's not going to make it. I'm like, fuck. I was like, because we rely on this money. The only time we get paid is when you fight. And I'm like, fuck, man. I was like, what happened? He got sick, and I didn't get my show. And I was at, I think that time, like 360, 370. I think I was at 370 to show. Yeah, because I thought I fought Ray Borg. I fought him. Yeah, I was at $370,000 to show, plus your $40,000 Reebok money. So I was like, man, there goes, $400K right there, because he got sick. And then, Matt jumped on the phone. He goes, what about, get a DJ paid? I mean, he's here. He's kind of weight. He did everything he needed to. And they're like, we technically don't have to pay you. But luckily, you know, Reebok came through and they gave me my $40K, and then we rescheduled the fight. We fought like, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks later. Then I got Reebok money again, and then I also got, you know, my full pay. But I think Reebok was cool about paying it because you know how Reebok, when you get there to fight week, you have to advertise that you're wearing Reebok and all that stuff. So that's why they say, okay, you did your contract for the Reebok or whatnot, we'll pay you that. Yeah. So when I saw that, when you made that comment, I was like, no, you're absolutely right. Especially, it's no different if you're a backup fighter. What Tom Aspinall made, I think it was like $200,000 to be a backup fighter, and all he did was jump on his scale. And you know, it's not like,
and he's probably not gonna, you know, you're probably not going to fight. Like it's probably 95% chance you're not.
Exactly.
Fighting. Especially at heavyweight, you don't have to worry about the guys you missing weight or anything.
Exactly.
Like that.
So for you, it's like, damn, you know, you made weight and you're going to the arena, then it gets called off, and I was like, what the fuck? It's like, can I get something? Can I get my cryptocurrency money? Pay me a bit, pay me something, you know, pay for my time.
Yeah. So they're throwing me something, and it's decent.
Okay.
I think it's going to be decent money, but I haven't got it yet. I'm not 100% sure, but it's going to be decent money. And then they're giving me the opportunity to make it all whole and more, you know, with this fight, basically like 2 or 3 weeks later. So I'm grateful for for that. But I understand where everybody's at. Yeah. Like it's, you know, we're a young sport. They're trying to figure out, they're trying to be consistent with these situations because it happens more often than people, I guess, think. So what am I going to do? I can't, it is what it is. You know, I'm happy. I'm getting paid good money to fight, and I have the opportunity to fight and do what I love anyway. So. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I think if you look at the landscape, like you said, you know,
the landscape of free agency right now looks scary.
What
do you think? What's your take on that? You know more than me.
Fuck, man. It's hard to say, you know, it's very hard to say, right? Because I feel if you go free agency, you know, right now, like when I had the opportunity to get out of my contract at one championship of the UFC, I made more money fighting in one championship than I did in the UFC. That's my situation. You look at Sergio Pettis. I've talked to him when he got out of his UFC contract. He went to Bellator. He made more money fighting in Bellator than he did in the UFC. You look at a guy like Kyojo Horiguchi. He left the UFC. His only loss in the UFC was to me. He went over to Ryzen. I'm assuming he was making more money. You look at Francis Ngannou. He's making more money, right? So I think it's by case, right? But if you
by case, but also by time. I don't think right now.
Yes.
Like when you went over, I feel like it was a good time. There was a like Eddie Alvarez went over, made crazy money. Vitor Belfort was supposed to make crazy money. Yep. There was some weird stipulations I heard. Like if it's a kickboxing match, he gets paid like $20K, but if it's an MMA match, he's making like $1 million. But they only could give him kickboxing matches. Like weird. I feel
see
like
no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I have no idea 100%. About that, but.
Oh, I don't really know either. Like, it's just rumors. But the UFC, you show up, that you fight, you get paid, and you don't have to worry about that. And if you become a champion, you get paid. I know, like, you were in a tough situation because you were like the only champion. You didn't get pay-per-view points.
Yep, I only got
like that's
I only got once, and that was like my biggest gripe. You know, biggest struggle with the UFC. Like, you know. I always laugh because you don't forget conversations, right? Like I've had maybe 10 conversations with the UFC. You think how many conversations Sean Shelby, Nick Maynard, Joe Silva, Dana White, they have what, 500 people on the roster, and they're having conversations left and fucking right, not just with athletes, but with sponsorships and, you know, this and this and this. So I'll never forget it. When I got my brand new contract after I beat I can't remember who it was, but it was after I knocked out Joseph Benavidez, I believe it was, UFC Fox 8 or 6 or whatever the fuck it was. I was like, I want pay-per-view points. They're like, we don't give it to small people. And I'm like, it was almost the infancy stage of the flyweight division, right? So there was, you know, you had 135, 125. But they said that. So it was like, all right, well, I guess I'm at 125 and 50, and let's run it. And then I remember going through my whole entire contract right there. Then when I finally fight Henry Cejudo, I was like, okay, now can I get pay-per-view points? Yeah, but you get pay-per-view points, you can't, you know. And then, you know, Tyron Woodley becomes a fucking champion, and his black ass is getting $500,000 right off the gate. Plus,
who'd you say? Who?
Tyron Woodley.
Oh, Tyron
Yeah,
Woodley,
yeah. He gets to become a champion. He gets 500K off the bat and fucking pay-per-view points. I'm like, what the fuck? I've been in this bitch since 2012 as a champion, and I go through the whole contract, and I'm trying to get 350 plus pay-per-view points. You say me, I can't get that. So that's what I always have my biggest thing. But yeah, I think you hit on the nail. It's all about timing. You know, like right now, free agency. Is it kind of scary? Yeah, I agree with you. It could kind of be scary if you have, especially where you're at. You're 40 years old. You're at the tail end of your career. You want that guaranteed money. Guaranteed fights are to be coming your way, and you know the checks have never bounced. You've always got your check.
Yeah, I'm completely fine ending my career in the UFC, but I feel like no, I'm not even talking about myself. I'm just talking about free agency in general. Yeah. It seems like a tough place to be when I see these Bellator fighters, you know, that are champions, and they're all coming out saying the same thing, that they can't get a fight in the PFL. Mm-hmm. You got to feel bad for them. They're kind of, you know, they're all champions, and they're in the prime, and they want to be able to, you know, make the money and put on a show, and they're not able to. Yeah. And so that's the thing when people complain about the UFC, it's like, yeah, no, I get it. Like at the end of the day, in 20 years from now, we'll look back and we'll be like 70s baseball players. And I'm sure things are going to change like crazy, but they put on fights every single week, basically, and they give you the opportunities to fight and to make the money that you agreed to making. So it's like, in that, there's no comparison to any other organization.
Oh, damn. I love talking. I love talking.
There's also, you know, in other organizations, it's also like a lot of times, you know, like it's hard for them to get fights, you know, scheduled.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how, I don't know, you know, just from talking to fighters in the gym and stuff. I don't know. I'm not talking, you know, you've been in the position of, you know, talking to a lot of different organizations, and you've been in multiple organizations, big ones.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit more knowledge than me, but just from talking to fighters, like, you know, there's a lot of frustration a lot of times about not being able to get fights and when they're ready to fight.
Yep. No, I think it's all across the board. You know, I think you hit that on a nail, and I think all athletes can speak on their own experiences, right? Like people's like, I had a horrible time with that. Like for me, you asked me, how was your time with the UFC? It was okay. You know, I'm a little pissed off. I didn't get my pay-per-view points, but I'm gonna get it back on that check I'm gonna get. You asked me, how was my, you know, relationship with One Championship? It was fucking amazing. It changed my life. It's the best thing ever. You asked John Jones, how's he like the UFC? Man, UFC, you know, I'm making great money. Dana White be shitting on me sometimes. And, you know, now I'm a duck because I want to fight Tom Aspinall, but I'm still making good money. You know, you ask Conor McGregor, it was a good fucking time. I'm going to get rich and rich when I check comp. It's everybody's case by case. Everybody's case by case.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
And at the end of the day, like, you know, people complain. We all want more money. That's always just it's going to be how it is. But we all come from like humble beginnings, and we never really expected to make much money at all. Mm-hmm. You know, if I would have, when I was up and coming, if I like just thought about making $200,000 in a year or even $100,000, I was happy if I could make a job where I'm making $100,000 a year. I'm like, I'm successful. I'm happy as hell. I'll have enough money to feed my family. I could go out to lunch here and there. Mm-hmm. I'm happy as hell. So to be where I'm at and like, you know, all the money that we made, like you gotta be grateful. So it's hard to honestly like complain. Because thank God that there's a sport like MMA right now, because otherwise what the hell would we be doing? Maybe I'd be a phys ed teacher.
Because I guarantee there's not a job out there where a 5'3" black man like myself who weighs 150 pounds can make what I made in my career. So I agree with you. I
don't know, man. Muggsy Bogues, I feel like you could be like Muggsy Bogues.
Oh yeah, man, but he didn't have
dunking on people.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have a long career though. I mean, my career is like fucking, you know, 18, 15 years, you know.
You probably know everything about Muggsy Bogues, don't you?
I do.
Pick the wrong guy.
I know who that is. When I was playing basketball, he was in Space Jam. You know who's small, good, great defensive player.
Plays the Hornets.
Muggsy Bogues played 14 NBA seasons. You say he didn't have a long.
Okay. Oh, jeez. Well, shit. Well, I'll shut the fuck.
That's amazing. Let's see. I hate to even say this to you, but this is how much money he made in his career. Yeah. 18.4 million.
Yeah, to make that much.
Same. Yeah, that's nice.
Oh fuck!
Bro, some of these other sports, so it will drive you crazy if you look into it.
Yeah, and he don't even got his own fucking shoe brand. That's just fucking crazy. $18 million.
Well, he was fascinating.
Yes, he was.
The fact that, how tall was he? 5'5" or something like that? 5'4"?
So
maybe not
5'5", 5'4". One of the fucking two. I mean, he was short. He was short compared to other athletes. Like you look at that 5'3". 5'3". I'm 5'4". You're right here. I'm bigger than him. So I mean,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, he's 5'3". Oh, we're the same size. I always keep telling myself I'm 5'4", 5'5", but. It is what it is.
It's all right.
It's my dream. Yeah. Okay, let's get back on track. You got a fight coming up. It's rescheduled. You're taking on Erik Anderson. You know, how are you feeling about going about this fight? Obviously,
it's Erik Anders.
Oh, Anders. Erik Anders. I apologize.
Just let him. It's fun.
Erik Anders. Like, how are you feeling about going into this match? Obviously, I've been in your position before. I was getting ready to fight Ray Borg. 8-week camp to get ready for him. They push it back. He gets sick. Another 2 to 3 weeks. You know, obviously you're still motivated. How you feel about, you know, this time around?
Yeah, I felt really ready to go like 3 weeks ago. And if they would have told me I had to make 185 again, that would have been a nightmare. But now we're doing a catch weight of 195.
Okay,
so the
good.
extra like 9 pounds is really nice. I was able to have a full Thanksgiving dinner and the weight cut's going to be so easy compared to what I just did a couple weeks ago. So I'm excited about that. I feel healthy, and I'm ready to put on a show. He's a big, strong, southpaw fighter, athletic kid. Comes forward, tries to throw big left hands. He's been wrestling a couple times in his last fight, but yeah, I just think I have a speed advantage on the feet. I feel like and technical advantage, and I think I have a big advantage when it comes to the ground game, wrestling, and all that. So I'm excited. I just got to go out there and, perform. So I'm excited to do that.
I love it. It's crazy. You've been making 185 your whole fucking career. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Right? Usually people grow into a different weight class, right? Like, I mean, maybe I may be talking to my ass, but it's impressive you've been making 185 still at 40 years old. Like, you're still doing it.
These 205 pounders are huge, though. These 205 pounders are all like 6'4", 6'5". They're like 250 pounds off season. Yeah. Like I'm walking, like hanging out with Jamal Hill. He's like, "Yeah, I'm 250 right now." I'm like, I couldn't get to 250 if my life depended on it. Like, it just wouldn't happen. Well, I would have to get on steroids probably.
But how tall are you? You're like 6'1", 6'2"?
I'm 6'2". I'm 6'2".
I mean, that's pretty fucking big too, man. I mean,
yeah, but when I get in shape, I'm like 215 and not much bigger. And when I'm like in good cardio shape, and those guys all rehydrate to probably like 220, 225, 230. So I'd be giving up a little bit of an advantage there, but I still feel not that I like cutting weight, but I like having I like getting like really sound with my diet and having the routine set in place, and I feel it just makes me work that much harder, and I kind of like that.
Okay,
that's one thing I'll miss when I'm done is just being set in these routines to make myself healthier and getting down to weight and just. That the whole training aspect is something I feel like I'm definitely gonna miss.
Dude, it doesn't have to stop. Like that's what like I'm trying to be a flagship for. Like I've been a world champion. I've competed at the highest level. I'm still young. I'm 38. You're still young, relatively. 40-year-old is still young. And I think just because we don't compete for money, I mean, you could do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you could do IBJJF and NoGi. You go against people, you be Masters 3 and you compete. You have to pay your admission fee, but you get to diet, you get to go to the weight class you want, you get to train hard, no more concussions, no more, getting hit in the head, and you can still compete and you can still live that same healthy lifestyle. And that's one thing I'm really trying to push with my brand. It's like, dude, like you still could be considered a badass. Like my wife, I consider her a badass. She wakes up at 4 a.m. She goes to the gym, works her ass off, sits in a sauna. She comes home, she takes her first form, ignition, then she takes her first form whey protein. Like she's trained like a professional athlete, but she's not. But she goes, I feel so fucking good. Why would I want to feel like this all the time? Chris, you can have the same thing too. Just because you ain't getting paid by the UFC, it's not like your wife's like, since you're done training, you're not a professional fighter, you get to get fat and you could still because you want to be active with your kids because they're gonna get older, right? So
100%. No, I love what you're doing, and I agree. It is inspirational to see a guy like you retire and be fulfilled. Like you look great. You look healthy. You seem like you're inspired to work hard and you're motivated. Because that is a scary thing for fighters. You get so focused on your career, and it's such we've been doing it such a long time. And you go into training camps and you have these goals that you set out for yourself, and you're so blinded to life afterwards that it's kind of scary to shut that part of your brain off and move into something else that is unknown, and like real jobs and stuff like that. To even think that way is scary. And then not being in the gym and training and having that, but You're right. I look forward to doing jiu-jitsu, and I look forward to competing and doing that stuff, because I think if I don't, I will turn into like a fat ass. Like, I'm going to need that competitiveness is still being touched. And that I am grateful that jiu-jitsu is a thing that I feel you can do for a long time, and, you know, not get injured as much and not get punched in the head. And, so I definitely see that as something I'll be doing after this, to stay competitively, you know, getting rid of all that, the competitive desire, you know, just keep feeding that.
Yeah. And, you know, there's now, I feel like NoGi grappling is getting bigger. Like, you have, you know, one championship, you have ADCC, you have, you know, CJI, Craig Jones Invitational, you have UFC Fight Pass now. So, I mean, Carlos Condon and Michael Venom Page just grappled. Right. And then, you know what I mean? They probably made, you know, 5, 10, I don't know how much they made, right? But they're grappling. They took no injuries whatsoever. So I think that's something you could look forward to, because I've always felt like one of the things I respect about you in your whole entire career, you never put your fatherhood on the back burner. Meaning, I'll never forget when your house got flooded and you're like, I'll take care of this shit. Like, I'm still going to fight. I'm going to take care of my family. And they're like, we'll take care of you. I was like, no, I got it. You've always been in your, you know, your kid's life. You've always been around your wife, because there's some athletes and everybody does their career differently, right? You were never that athlete who just basically isolate yourself from your family. You didn't go miles and miles away and you just, I'm here to fight, and then you come back home. It's like you were always there, and I respect you for that, because a lot of athletes think they have to do that, right? I got to get out of my comfort zone. But wouldn't you want to train in your comfort zone? Don't you want to be comfortable when your body's stressed out, you're going through all these injuries, you're fucking tired of watching tape? Like, that's one thing I loved about my career. Like, because when I retired, it was like, all right, motherfuckers, now I'm taking you to school every goddamn day. Now I'm picking you up from school every goddamn day. Now you got me. My wife was like, it's a different change. I love you being home. And I want to give you your flowers, and I respect that you went through your career doing that.
Yeah, I take my kids to school still. For me, I just knew that I wanted to be a big part of my kids' life and not miss moments. And that's why, like, even I've had a lot of opportunities to do like the commentating and stuff and analyst work. And you get dragged into that. Listen, it's a great profession, and it's great. A lot of guys do really good with it, but you're gone almost every weekend and away from your family. And my kids, all their sports and everything I love to be a part of is during the weekend. So I can never fully commit to something like that, because you miss out on such, you know, opportunities to be around your kids and like moments where they like, you want to be there for them. Throughout my whole and for better or for worse, my family has had to be, they've always been the center of everything, you know, like I didn't want to miss memories out with them. And, you know, I've still traveled a lot. I've done, you know, done plenty of things, but I just family for me has always been number one, and that's not going to change.
I love that, man. I love that. Michael, before we let my man Chris go, you got anything for Chris?
Yeah, I actually do. I couldn't let you be on here without admitting something. This is like a therapy session for me, because I got to say, my favorite fighter of all time is Anderson Silva. And when you beat him that first time, I'm telling you right now, since that moment, I've never experienced disappointment like that. As a fan, I was stunned. I could not fucking believe it. But now, as a 32-year-old, I could sit here and be like, dude, you are a fucking badass that you beat a guy who I never thought he was going to lose. Like, it almost felt like I have the pro wrestling stuff, like Undertaker at WrestleMania. I didn't think that streak was ever going to end. What did it feel like just to land that punch and just see him unconscious? Someone that won, I believe, 16 straight fights at that point. What did that feel like for you?
So like I said earlier in the show, like I never really accomplished my goal in wrestling. And then when I got into MMA, the goal was to become a world champion. And Anderson Silva was the champion of my weight class from the beginning. So I knew that was the guy I was going to have to beat. Like, so when I was fighting these guys, when I was up and coming, it was always, you know, I was fighting somebody and I was strategically preparing for them. But in my mind, it was really about being the best in the world. So I was always envisioning myself training harder and being better than Anderson Silva, the champion in the weight class. And I was a big fan of his too. But as you get closer to that fight, you start looking at, you know, you stop looking at like all his amazing knockouts and the way and all the the positive attributes that he has, and you start looking at some of the weaknesses that he has, and that you hyper focus on that to give yourself confidence. And so when guys were looking at all these crazy knockouts and thinking he's unbeatable, I was looking at like Chael Sonnen took him down, over and over and over again. I felt like I had better wrestling than him. He got submitted in the 5th round, and I was like, I've got way better jiu-jitsu than Chael Sonnen. No offense, Chael. But so I saw all those things, and so going into the fight, I was just very, very confident that I was gonna get it done. I thought I was gonna be able to finish him on the ground, like ground and pounds or submission. So when I ended up knocking him out, I mean, I shocked myself. I couldn't believe it. And with that left hook, he drops, and I lost my mind. I lost my mind. It's funny because in training camp, we had all my training partners talk trash and put their hands down and mock me and all that stuff. And I was always cool, calm, and collected. But when it actually happened in there, the way I got that knockout was actually by losing. I lost my cool. I actually was like, I'm not going to stop punching until I hit this dude. It happened, and it ended up working out. I just, like you said, like I threw that right hand, I missed, and I just like wanted to hit him with something.
Mm-hmm.
So I hit him with the back fist, and then I came back with that left hook and dropped him. And it was my first time ever accomplishing, a major goal that I set out for. And it was the best feeling ever. You feel so good. And then you realize, you're still the same guy looking in the mirror, but it did change my life forever.
Love that. Hey, and thank you for doing that, because if he would have beat you, he would have had 12 consecutive title defenses, and now been at a fucking record. I would have to, go further. So thank you for knocking his ass out, because it gave me right where I needed to get to 11. I appreciate you, Chris.
Yeah.
Never got a chance to thank you.
Demetrious. Most people don't thank me for that. Most people are like, you fans of Anderson, they hate me actually. Look, he can't even look at me in the eye anymore. But it's it worked out good. I got tons of respect for him. My first podcast that I had with Won't Back Down, which then Sirius ended up hiring me, and I worked for them for a year. Then I stopped doing my podcast. I do want to start doing that again.
You should.
But when my first one I ever had was I brought Anderson Silva on, because I had just broke my leg, and so that was the first guy I had on, and it was a really cool discussion with him. Big fan of him. Always rooting for him.
Boom.
But maybe one day we have a boxing match.
Oh shit! Here we go. Here we go.
UFC, baby.
Oh, awesome. Well,
Zuffa boxing.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. This is your opportunity to let the fans know where they can support you, how they can follow you, and, plug that podcast, man. Who knows? When you probably got 2 more years left, whatever you decide to hang them up, we'll always be, celebrating you and rooting you on whatever you do. This is your opportunity to let the fans know how they can support you.
Chris Weidman on all the social media outlets. You could go to Won't Back Down on all the podcast outlets like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the others. And you can find my Won't Back Down podcast. There's still some podcasts out there. Actually, all of them are still there. And maybe after this fight, I'm going to start the podcast up. I think you reinvigorated my my podcast career right now. I do miss talking to people. People like you, just BSing and getting to know people on a different level,
Dude, like this is probably like, everybody always asks me, what's been your favorite podcast? What's been your favorite podcast? And each of the podcasts I've ever done, or the guests that I've done, it's always something different. Booker T, hear about him, seeing a black guy wrestler at the time when I was coming up to be able to do things. And like for this one, this will go down as probably my favorite, because we talked about, like, we both shared in, hey, we both were getting ready to fight. We're about to weigh in. You weighed in. You didn't get paid. I felt the same thing. I should have got fucking my full pay, but it didn't happen. I'm going back 4 weeks later. I got it. Then we talked a little about, you were talking about like, dude, like free agency, it's scared right now. A lot of people are scared to say certain things about how they feel and how they view the landscape. It's not a bad perception. It's just your perception, which you see is going on right now. And I think you're the first athlete to ever say that, right? Where it's like, dude, like, it's kind of scary right now. Like, you've seen a lot of athletes come out saying that they're having a hard time getting fights. So this will go down as one of my favorites, just because of that aspect. And hear about your 30 injuries, like fucking 30 surgeries. Man, it's crazy. Like,
well, I appreciate it, man. It's a huge honor to come on here. I'm always a huge fan of yours. I think you're the GOAT. And it's so cool that you still have your shit together. You're able to have these conversations, and you're doing so good in life after stopping. And I think you could have still kept going and done amazing things, but you found another outlet and you knew when to hang it up. And That's awesome, man. You got yourself together.
Thanks.
I did see something where like did they do brain tests on you and your brain actually got better over
Yeah.
years?
So you remember? I don't know if you ever were a part of it. It's like the Cleveland Clinic study where they want to study athletes' brains who do like trauma. So football players, boxers, mixed martial artists. Like it was an opportunity to jump in there. And how I got put in the program was like they were back in the day to get an MRI was like $3,000, right? Like you needed an MRI in order to get your license in certain countries or states. California was a big one. I think Canada was another big one. So I was like, I don't have $3,000. And one, I can't use my insurance because you have to have a referral in order to get an MRI. You can't just walk to a doctor's office like, hey, I need an MRI.
Yeah.
They're like, why? Do you have headaches? No. Why? Because I need to get my license. Too fucking bad. It's $3,000.
Yeah.
So this Cleveland Clinic was doing studies on athletes' brains, and if you opt into it, you get a free MRI, and it was free. So I started back in 2012, and I would go every 2 to 3 years. And they say if you keep coming back, you get a free MRI, and we'll track all your brain health for the whole entire career. And so I kept on going, And then when I went on my the last one I did, he was like, Demetrious, I have amazing news. He was like, your brain hasn't changed not one bit since you started fighting. You have gotten better of enunciating and articulating your words to where he said he's seen an opposite side of it where people, they stop coming. He was like, we've had athletes, stop coming because they didn't want to hear the truth about what their brain's doing from taking as many concussions they have over their whole entire career. And I remember Max Holloway says, DJ's not fair because I didn't have any wars. I've been knocked out once. I was very strategic about my career, how I got into my fights. But yeah, I mean, I'm going back actually in December to do another follow-up of, the brain study because I'm doing jiu-jitsu now. So I want to see what's going on. Granted, I'm not getting hit in the head, but I think it's always good to have a baseline of where you started and to where you are now. And,
that's amazing.
Knock on wood, it's
so
good.
Just to add on to this whole theory that you get smarter over time. So in New York, they're pretty stringent with getting a baseline on the cognitive test with the commission. And so I do the testing, and Longo's there, CJ's there, and they do the same thing. It's like, here's 5 words. Yep. At the end of the test, you're going to have to remember them, boom. So you're saying back. Then they ask you to, they start with 3 numbers saying backwards, 4 numbers saying backwards, 5 numbers saying backwards, 6 numbers saying backwards, and you get, I think, set up to 7 saying backwards. And then a couple other, questions. And then they eventually ask you for the 5 words back again.
Yep.
So I got 100% on it, and so the lady, and I guess the math part is the
hardest.
The number,
the hardest.
Repeating it backwards is supposed to be the hardest. So she was like, "Are you really good at math or something?" Like you're the only. She was like, "You're the only person who scored 100 on this." Like, I can't believe it. I'm like, "No, I don't think I'm good at math at all." I was like, "That's hysterical," but thank you. Turns out there was 2 people who scored 100 that day. Me and Jim Miller.
Really?
Yeah, and I think we're probably the oldest dude, like at least close to the oldest dudes on the card.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard. That's pretty crazy.
The math one is always the hardest because it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how they would do it. It's like, I'm going to say these numbers. It's like 5, 24, 6. Repeat them backwards, and you do that. Then it goes, okay, 4. Then it goes 6, and it's like, girl, those are. So I always have struggled of repeating the numbers backwards, but when it came to the letters and the colors and all that, I've always been good on that. But see,
they ask you the months, and then they ask you to say it backwards.
Yes,
they do that. Like they try to startle you a little bit and get you nervous, and then you have to chill.
But it's good that you, after the amazing career you've had, you're still sharp. You get to go out on your own terms whenever that is, and you still carry a conversation and not trip over your words, and be able to have a conversation, to be able to write, right? Because there's a lot of athletes who come in this sport who stay too long and they're not able to show anything that they've done in their career, and they're struggling, right? They're struggling.
Yeah, that's awful. Yeah. I know. That's awful to see. I hate that. Yeah, and if I felt like an inkling of that, after all the 30 surgeries and everything, like I could push through that. But if I felt like an inkling of something going on with my brain, that'd shut me down 100%.
Damn.
You know.
Well, boys, Chris, this was amazing. We could have gone on for another hour, 2 hours, but maybe we'll do it on your podcast. Never Back Down. Oh,
that'd be awesome.
How's Pops doing? How's Pops?
Oh, he's doing great, man. That's my boy.
I never get it. He goes, and that's still my boy, and this is still my boy. When he did that, we were like, were you like, fuck, Dad, come on, let's go, come on.
It was embarrassing. That was my first loss ever. I'm all beat up. Oh, that was awful. I just wanted to get out of the octagon. My dad's grabbing the mic from Rogan, screaming.
I fucking love it.
Yeah, he's something else. Yeah, he's like the most supportive dude ever. He's such a good dad, granddad. And yeah, he's an inspirational dude for me. That's why another reason why I take family real serious, because he's been super supportive over us, this whole time. So
that's what's up. Well, tell him the MightyCast sends our love. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of the MightyCast. I am your host, Demetrious Johnson. That is my co-host, Michael Montsover, and that is our guest, Chris Weidman. You can catch him in action at UFC 310 as take on Erik. Obviously, this is a reschedule because Erik got sick, but we get to see Chris Weidman fight one more time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell to know we go live. We will see you at the next episode of the MightyCast. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Recap. And this part of the episode is where we recap everything we just went through with our guest. And our guest was Chris Weidman. Wow. I mean, as you guys can tell, I'm a big fan of him. We've hung out before outside of the UFC, partying nighttime with my wife, his wife. Great time. And just right off the rip, when we started talking to him, when he said he had 30 surgeries in his whole entire career, his whole entire career from wrestling to mixed martial arts, the leg injury he had from Anderson Silva. Fucking A, man. I would have been done. I think I would have been done after that leg injury, because 2 years off, going back and forth, the infections, just the antibiotic, just everything with that, and still have, the feeling to want to compete at 40 years old, because, we talk off camera for like probably 15 minutes, and, he's still excited to compete. And for me, I'm just like, I've been fucking done a long time ago, man. A long time ago. We talked about him doing the ADCC. A lot of you guys probably didn't know he did go against Andre Galvao, which is an absolutely amazing match. So do yourself a favor and watch that if you get the opportunity to. And you know what? I felt like we didn't even have to ask about his next match against Erik, because he's had such a long, successful career. The ups and downs, the knockout loss to Yoel Romero, we didn't ask about that. I mean, just an absolute standout guy. And I'm happy that he's never changed since he got into this sport, because he's always been an athlete that's been around, basically did fatherhood through his career. Now, that's not me taking a shot at any other athletes, but I've seen guys, Martin Nguyen, a former one championship athlete. He lives in, I believe it's Australia. He would leave his family. And I'm like, dude, don't leave your family. Stay home, train. And he goes, no, mate. He goes, I feel like if I go away and separate, I could just focus on myself. And I'm like, yeah, but you're missing your wife. You're missing your kids. You're missing on key things that you don't get to be a part of. Like I said, dude, I guarantee if you did your training camp back home with your wife and kids, I guarantee you're going to still produce the exact same athlete. I guarantee it. But seeing Chris Weidman stay home, be part of fatherhood, has always put a smile on my face, because those are just times and memories you don't get back, right? And man, what a great guy. What a great guy.
Say he's a great guy. He killed my hero. He beat my hero. He knocked him out. Then he broke his leg viciously. You call him a nice guy.
Hey, no. You know what? It is what it is. It's fucking fighting, all right? I'm sorry.
He should have just thrown the fight. Let Anderson Silva just keep getting that undefeated streak. But no, he's I'm happy. It's like the little kid in me can be put to rest now that I finally, I met Chris Weidman. I talked to him. He's a good guy. So if someone was going to take that O from Anderson Silva, I think it happened to the right guy. So, no, I'm just kidding. It was, just a guy who, no matter what he does this weekend, Erik Anders is going to be a tough fight. Erik is like you said, we didn't talk to him much about the fight, but he's a freaky strong dude. He played football at Alabama. It's not going to be an easy fight, but win or lose, he's one of those guys. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. former middleweight champion, just one of the good guys in the sport. So we're going to be rooting for him. But I will say, though, there was nothing. Did you say you were at the fight, or like when you saw him knock out Anderson Silva, where were you? Because I feel like no matter what, you're going to remember where you were in that moment.
God, I think I was at Hooters, to be honest with you. Hooters used to have watch parties. I think I was at a Hooters, to be honest with you. Yeah, and it was an amazing knockout because I was just like you. I felt Anderson Silva was never ever going to lose. Like what he's done to Vitor Belfort. I mean, he was a man. And to see what Chris Weidman did to him. And then, I never forget, Chris Weidman knocked him out. He got the belt. And then they did, I think it was an immediate rematch. I could be wrong. But I never forget Anderson Silva. He was on the edge of the ring. He goes, I'm back. Like, I'm taking this fight serious. And then he has that grotesque, that grotesque, leg injury where he kicks him, he checks it, breaks his leg, and now it's kind of like the end of Anderson, not the end of Anderson Silva, but it was like, man, will Anderson ever be the same? But I was there when Chris Weidman fought Luke Rockhold, and Luke Rockhold ended up beating him, and that was an amazing, fight as well because Luke Rockhold was up on the scene. He was a big fucking 185er, I felt like, and they had a great match, and Chris Weidman ended up losing the belt to Luke Rockhold. But yeah, Chris Weidman, I agree with you. He's been one of those all-time, fan favorites to watch. And let's get back to Erik Anders. Great jiu-jitsu background. He's very, very good in jiu-jitsu. I've seen him compete in IBJJF in NoGi. So it will be interesting. I feel like this fight can go anywhere. And I think the biggest thing when I look at this fight against Chris Weidman versus Erik is Chris Weidman has the experience. He's had the tougher fights. He's been a world champion, so he has been in the game for a very, very long time. The only thing that I see that can hinder Chris from this fight is just, can his body withstand the damage? Right? Like if he gets caught by big shot, how is his body going to respond? How is his body going to respond to a younger guy? Like with the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu, right? Like that's where I think this fight's going to come down to. Like how is Chris going to navigate it? I don't know the game plan. I haven't watched much video on Erik. I feel like Chris Weidman is very well rounded. It's going to be an interesting fight. It's going to be an exciting fight as well.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a hater also with the whole him getting paid his show money thing, but I do think it's something for the fighters that needs to be a discussion, right? Like we're seeing it happen more. Just have some kind of discussion of, hey, like maybe you get, it's written to the contracts that you get 50%, like just something. Yeah. Cause that's like not to name any names, but it's become such an issue that I know fighters where they're going against someone who they're worried about is going to miss weight, and it's in their head the whole camp. Like, you don't want that to be a factor. Like, man, am I going to even make money? Like, I'm working so hard. Am I going to even? Is the guy going to show up? Like, it shouldn't be that way. So, not trying to be big anti UFC thing, but I do think, yeah.
No, I don't think
they need to get taken care of with that shit. So I think Weidman had a great answer though. I think it will be taken care of now that they see it's an issue. And
yeah. Well, the biggest thing too is one, contractually they don't have to pay us unless you showed up. So what is defined as showing up? Right? That's going to be the fine print. That what defines showing up. If you jump on a scale, you make your weight, you get your show money. Perfect. That means your show money, right? Then when you fight, win or lose, you get your win purse, or you don't get anything because you lost. So I think it needs to be written in fine detail. But like even for me, when I fought Ray Borg and he showed up, he got sick. I didn't get my pay, but I got my Reebok pay. Then we ran it back, 3 to 4 weeks later. So I bet you if Chris Weidman wasn't going to get the opportunity to fight him within 3 weeks in time, I bet you they probably would have gave him something, right? I mean, you just never know. And then you do have those guys who have a hard time making weight, and you're always like, man, he's going to make weight. And then it comes down to the athlete. Does an athlete, for me, I'll never forget, this is a story I never told anybody. But when me and Adrian are going to fight the second time, I was watching him. He missed weight or hydration, one of the fucking two. And I remember watching him run outside around the pool, and I was like, even if he doesn't make weight, we're still going to fight because I want my full paycheck, and I'm taking 20% of his money, and I'm going to donate it to a charity of my choosing, right? So getting back to the context of it is like, if an athlete shows up, you make weight, and an athlete who steps on the scale, he misses weight by 2 to 3 pounds, you have the option to fight him, right? Yes, he's going to have a weight advantage or whatever, but you get to take 20% or 10%. I think it's 20%. I think 10% goes to the commissioner, 10% goes to you. I'm not sure what it is nowadays, but the athlete does have the option. Now, with Chris Weidman's situation, Erik he didn't even show up to make weight. He didn't make weight, right? Did he make weight?
Yeah, no, they both made. The worst part about this one, it was hours before the card, so they both made weight.
And then Erik got sick. Do we know how he got sick or what happened?
No, they didn't say specifically, but he got and even it happened with Derek Lewis a couple weeks earlier. Like if this is becoming a normal thing, the UFC has to do the right thing and make sure that there's something written in there. It won't cost them a lot of money. Like I said, the article that I cited earlier, it would cost them maybe extra $2 million. This is a company that's worth $12 billion.
Exactly.
We're talking about
like,
$2 million to $5 million. It's not a big deal, but getting more on topic, we do have UFC 310. This card is pretty deep. Like, it's one of those cards you could just put it on during the early prelims, and there's a watchable fight. There's Michael Chiesa. There's some legends there. Clay Guida, he's fighting on the early prelims. Like, even Chris Weidman, we had him on the MightyCast. He's on the early prelims. He's headlining them. Not even the prelims. And then Aljo, Aljo. I was texting Aljo a little bit about this. Like, man, I just don't get Aljo and Mavsar being on the prelims and not the main card. It's insane.
That's one thing that, like, right there, that's a solid card right there. Mavsar versus Aljo, Chris Weidman versus Erik, Clay Guida taking on Chase Hooper.
No, yeah, you can make that a really badass fight night if you wanted to.
That's a great fight night. And then you have the main card with Shavkat taking on Ian Gary, then Kai Asukar versus Alex Pantoja. I mean, it's a pretty solid card. I think it probably gets a little undershadowed by a lot of people aren't talking about it because a lot of people don't know who Kai Asukar is, and the flyweights have never got a lot of love or push. Alex Pantoja, but that's a solid card from top to bottom. We had Aljo on the MightyCast. Hopefully we get some of those clips out about him talking about Mavsar. That's going to be an interesting fight. And that's a number one contender fight. That could be a number one contender, right? Because you look at the landscape of 145, I believe Mavsar is undefeated. Aljo, former world champion at 135. He's gone up to 145. He's been successful. And so, you have Ilia Topuria, who is still doing his thing. We don't know who he's going to fight next. Is he going to fight Diego Lopez, or is he going to fight Alex Volkanovski next? Like, we don't know where Ilia Topuria is going to go next. So that fight, Aljo versus Mavsar, has huge, number one contendership, implications on it.
No, and I hope that it being on the prelims doesn't mean that the UFC doesn't view it that way, because it 100% should be a title eliminator. Neither of those guys should have to fight anyone else. I think, I will say Diego Lopez would be pretty fucking interesting. So maybe I could be convinced of that, but I do think either way, there's an argument for that to be on the main card. But I will say, regardless of that, some really good fights to look out for. There's even Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith. Vicente Luque is fighting. And Nate Landwehr's a guy to watch out for. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's like just fucking amazing promo and super entertaining guy.
Young kid, lots of knockouts, I believe.
Yeah, he's actually not too young, but he's kind of like a journeyman who's finally starting to catch on. He's actually 36, but just a guy that you root for. So this is and then also Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov is just huge implications in the heavyweight division. A rematch there.
Yeah, I'll love to see Cyril Gane take on Tom Aspinall. That'll be a fucking banger fight too.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a great fight.
Yeah, because we've already seen Aspinall go against Volkov, so that would be interesting if Gane can get past him.
Yeah, if Gane can get past him, I think now if Gane gets past him, I wouldn't mind seeing Tom Aspinall fight Gane, and then obviously John Jones could retire unless he's gonna fight Tom Aspinall. I don't really want to see I wouldn't mind seeing Jones versus Alex Pereira, but now, we had MMA Guru on. He was like, there's nobody in the heavyweight division. I forgot about Gane. I think it'll be good because Gane is a stand-up artist, and we've only seen Tom Aspinall do work on the feet. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how Aspinall approach a fight against Gane, someone who's pretty good on the feet, who's very athletic, very good bouncy. That could be an interesting matchup. So I'm actually excited for that fight now too, because there's implication that if Gane wins, he could potentially fight Tom Aspinall. So they've got my attention now in that fight.
Yeah, and we'll of course do the proper final predictions coming up this week on Thursday. So we'll take a look and we'll go through the card. We obviously have the co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Gary, and then the main event. I always do like those flyweights better be getting the pay-per-view points like your ass didn't get. Because I hope that
I love the ass.
But what I find funny is I know knowing you that you're happy for them, of course. So I'm saying this is a joke. I'm saying this is a joke, but you have to admit it's kind of funny if Kaya Sakara on his first UFC fight's getting pay-per-view points. But I'm happy because times have changed, but that's pretty funny if that's true.
Yeah, he probably won't, but I hope Alex Pantoja does. And it comes down to this. So here's the thing though, like you got to remember, we talk about the golden age of mixed martial arts, right? When Conor was fighting, you had Ronda Rousey fighting, you had guys like Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Anderson Silva fighting. So let's say Alex Pantoja is getting pay-per-view points, right? It should even mean Henry Cejudo got pay-per-view points. How many pay-per-views do you think UFC 310 is going to sell? Just give me an answer. Just give me, what do you think is going to sell?
I don't know the number, but it will be below average, I think.
Well, what's below average? How many do you think they're going to sell?
I don't know what the they don't say what the numbers are publicly, so it's really.
So if I had to say, I would be shocked if this pay-per-view does over 250 to 300,000 buys, right? You think that's fair?
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine like
here,
John Jones probably did like 650,000 or something if I had to guess.
That was UFC 309, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally making up these numbers, but I guarantee you the buys are less than when you were champ. Just because that's the way things have moved. Illegal streaming, ESPN Plus pay-per-view. I could be wrong, but
well, it did 20,000 people in attendance. The gate was $16 million. God, usually able to find this. What's UFC 307? Let's do 307.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's not public the way it used to be. I think you're not going to be able to find pay-per-view buys.
Okay, so let's just say pay-per-view buys. Okay, here we go. This is a better. We're at UFC. Yeah, it's so weird. So let's just say it does 300,000. I'll be shocked if it does more than 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Yeah, because Jones versus DC did like 750,000, and that was a big ass fucking rivalry. But let's say that's 300,000, right? You do 300,000 buys. If the contracts are still structured the way they are, which I'm going to go on a limb and say they still are, because there's no reason for them to change it because they are benefiting it more from not changing it. So if it's still the same it was when I was a champion, which was back in 2018, the first 1 to 200,000 pay-per-view buys is $0 for the champion, right? Then once you break that threshold, once again, you have to break that threshold of 200,000 buys. From 200 to 400,000, you get an extra $1. So let's say he does get pay-per-view points. From 200,000, from 400,000, it's going to be $1. So you'll get an extra check for $200,000. That's still pretty nice. But where you make the big dick money is where you get on the card. When I look at it, I was looking at McGregor versus Poirier did 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. Now let's do the math there. From 1 to 2, nothing. From 2 to 4, an extra $1. Then from 4 to 600, it's like $1.50, or it could be $2. Then 6 to 800, it's another bump. But then from 8 to $1 million, it's another bump. But then $1 million plus, it can get to $5 a buy. So you get on one of those pay-per-view cards, one of those big dick ones, it's just fucking.
So then we have the data. There was one fight where you got pay-per-view points. It was it got 300,000. UFC 227. Dillashaw Garbrandt 2 was the main event. So it was 300,000 buy rate. So then
I got an extra check for $100,000.
I mean, it really is nuts how pay-per-view points are not what they're made out to be, because you need to have a Conor McGregor, a John Jones, and they're maybe an Alex Pereira has a little bit of a boost, but I really think the only difference makers that are currently out there are John Jones and McGregor. Which, let's not even talk about McGregor anymore. I mean, he's not fucking fighting. I certainly hope.
No, he's not fighting ever again. He's not fighting ever again.
Yeah. So I do think. Yeah, it's very tough because you need to have someone who's a headliner who sells a little bit, and
because even Sean O'Malley, versus Aljo came out. He goes, "This is it."
Yeah, Aljo thought it was the red panty night, and he's like, "These aren't red panties; these are like my grandma's panties."
And right there, that's what people don't understand is like you said. You have, it's not like it was back in the day, because I'm not even gonna lie. I liked it when it was back on like DirecTV, Comcast, because now if you want to watch the pay-per-view,
buffers too, it sucks.
Yeah, now you have to have great internet service, and then you also gotta have ESPN Plus, and that's a subscription every fucking month. And then you gotta drop $79.99 on top of that motherfucker. Back in the day, I have Comcast. Oh, I'm gonna buy pay-per-view, $64.99. Boom. It's seamless. But people don't realize, like, when you get pay-per-view points, it's not all be all. You still have to be lined up on a card that's going to be a fucking banger. Like UFC Noches. I have no idea what that did, but I'm sure Sean O'Malley had pay-per-view points, but that card was also fucking stacked. So it was a stacked card. Not one person alone can even drive. Even, I'll never forget, DC said, "I want to fight Jones again." Me, John Jones, we do good money. We make great money with each other. But when I fought this other guy, it was a good money. I want to fight John Jones again. So just so you guys know, it's, you have to be lined up with the right card, and you, as a champion, don't get to have the say-so. So if that's what people don't understand, like, if you have the say-so, then yeah, they'll be like, I'm not gonna fight. I'm gonna fight with Conor, or when fucking this guy fights. I'm gonna go out there performing and kick ass and chew bubblegum. But a lot of people are gonna tune in. So that's one thing that I think a lot of people. So back to the context, I'll be kind of curious to see if Alex Pantoja has pay-per-view points. Hopefully one day we'll have him on the MightyCast and he can say, yeah, I got pay-per-view points. And then hopefully they sell. I hope they do 900,000 buys, because I want to make sure that man can eat good. So, but man, I think another banger episode of the MightyCast. So we keep on racking them up, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know in the comments down below who you guys want to see on the MightyCast. I am your host, Demetrious Johnson. That's my co-host, Michael Wansover. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. Also, hit the bell to know when we go live. And make sure you guys come back here again, as we will do the final predictions for UFC 310. We will see you guys.
We also just got a Shavkat breakdown to take a look at. We got a Kai Asakura breakdown. So, we got plenty of UFC 310 content this week. And, of course, we'll always have the instant reaction. So,
Boom. Yep. We will see you guys at the next episode of the MightyCast.